9. It rained the day Leah drove the 120 miles to Indianapolis, but she couldn't have cared less. With Ethan riding beside her, the day didn't seem one bit gloomy. As she sped along the freeway, Ethan asked, "Are you nervous about the testing?" "A little. I wish it was over. I hate hospitals, don't you?" "I'm not so sure. The only time I've been in one, I met you. This does not seem like such a bad thing to me. Without the hospital, how would we have ever known one another?" He had a point there. "Okay, so I won't hate them so much anymore." He watched as she passed a semi-trailer. "You drive well." "I like to drive. Honestly, if you ever want to get your license, I'll let you use my car to take the test." Papa would never approve. To Leah, it seemed that there was a very little Jacob Longacre approved of. "Jonah drives." "I'm not Jonah." He reached over and turned on the car radio, listening intently to several stations before settling on the one that played country music. "You rebel, but you don't really do anything too far out in left field," Leah said, shaking her head. "I don't understand you, Ethan. Why don't you go all the way, like Jonah does?" "I cannot," he said, turning his attention to the countryside passing outside the window. Leah realized he was closing the subject. She warned herself not to pry. He would always be an enigma to her. In English clothes he appeared to be a regular guy, but she knew that her world was still foreign to him. And despite his testing on the English lifestyle, he was Amish at his core. Once they arrived at the hospital, Leah went to the X-ray department, filled out paperwork, and sat with Ethan in the adjacent waiting room. She was scheduled for both bone scans and MRIs of her leg and hand. Since the original X-rays had shown her cancer had eaten away bones in these places, these were the areas the doctor were most concerned with. "The doctors make me feel like I'm part of a puzzle," she told Ethan while they waited for her name to be called. "Like these two pieces of me are all that matters. Sometimes the doctor hardly even looks at my face. He just stares at my knee and finger as if they separated me from the rest of my body." "But your face is so pretty. How could he not stare at you?" Ethan always said things that touched her. She gave him a smile. "Have I told you how much I appreciate you?" When it was Leah's turn, she squeezed Ethan's hand, took a deep breath, and followed the technician into the X-ray room. The procedures took about an hour, and when both were over, she and Ethan went to another lab, where she filled out more paperwork and waited to have her blood drawn. "This is my least favorite part," she told Ethan. "During my chemo treatments, they were always sticking needles in me and testing my blood. I think they wanted to see if the chemo was helping me or killing me." He looked alarmed. "The chemo could have harmed you?" Hastily she added, "It's all right. Sometimes you have to take a little poison and kill off good cells along with bad ones. The important thing is killing off the bad guys." He seemed to understand her point. "In farming, it is the same. Some of the chemicals used to kill insects and blight can be harmful to healthy things. Once Rebecca's chickens got into rat poison and several died. I'll bet it broke her heart. I know how much she cares about those chickens. She never knew. When I found the dead ones, I quickly took them away, went to a neighbor's, and bought others to replace them." Ethan's confession endeared him to Leah even more. Who else would have tried to protect his sister's sensitive heart so discreetly? I think that was sweet and caring. To prove it, she kissed him on the cheek. He pulled back, his eyes twinkling. "If I am to get such an award for substituting chickens, I will tell you about every good deed I did. Don't push your luck. I probably did her no favor," he added thoughtfully. "Why's that?" "Death is a part of the cycle of life. We learn that lesson very early on a farm. We see it in the changing of the seasons. We see it in the birthing of new calves. Only the strongest ones survive. We'll help all we can, but if it's too much expense, it is better to let the weak ones die." His point of view surprised her. "You mean you allow money to decide whether or not a calf lives? That sounds kind of cruel." Free Feed is expensive, and a farm must be productive. It is the way of things. Good thing you don't feel that way about people. People are different. People have souls. Animals do not." Leah thought about her dead father and grandmother. She still missed them and hoped their souls had found peace after death. Once her testing was complete, Leah returned with Ethan to the floor where she spent so many days just before Christmas. As they strode the elevator up, Ethan asked, "Why do you want to visit this place? It is depressing you?" She wasn't sure herself. "I'll never really understand what happened to me here, Ethan, but something happened. I think I'm still trying to sort it all out." You had an extraordinary experience, that's for sure," Ethan told her, "but perhaps it's better not to think about it too much." Leah knew he was right, but she couldn't help herself. The days and nights she'd spent there, the fear she'd felt, the mysterious appearances by Gabriella, whom Leah had assumed was a nurse, but who wasn't. Finding the diary of Molly's dead sister all came back to her in a rush. She couldn't let go of any part of the experience. Leah and Ethan got out of the elevator and went to the nurse's station. Nobody behind the desk looked familiar. She asked one of the nurses, "Is Molly Thrasher working today?" "Molly's taking a patient down to the lab," the nurse explained. "We must have just missed her down there," Leah told Ethan. Then she said to the nurse, "Would you please tell her that Leah Lewis Hall is here and that I'll be in the rec room for the next 30 minutes. Leah and Ethan walked down the hallway, stopping at the door of the room she and Rebecca had shared. Two young patients were in the bed, each watching TV. The room looked smaller than she remembered. She had no desire to go inside. In the recreation room in the corner where the magnificent tree had stood, children's artwork was taped to the wall. "I love that Christmas tree your father brought," Leah said. "It was the prettiest tree I ever saw. When I couldn't sleep at night, I'd come down here just to look at it, and I'd imagine the woods where it came from." "And now you have seen the woods with your own eyes." "With you," she said, the memory of the night with him still bright. Ethan slid his arms around her waist, and she snuggled against his side. "This seems a good time to ask you," he said. "My friends are having a party on the 4th of July. Will you go with me?" "Do you think it's a good idea?" "They tell me I'm welcome, but sometimes I'm not so sure." "They do not know you as well as I," Ethan said, "and they don't want to either," Leah thought. She would always be English in their eyes, and she'd never forgotten what Kathy had told her the first day at work, about the Amish sticking with their own kind. She said, "Tell me about the party." "We will go to the country fair. After the late fireworks, there will be a camping party on the Yoder farm property. I would like to have you with me." "Camping? You mean like staying in tents outside all night?" "The summer nights are warm. We will only use sleeping bags. It is something the group does every year. Even my father and his friends did it when they were growing up. I have not gone before, but this year I would like to go. But only if you will come with me." "I'm having trouble imagining your father taking a fling," Leah said seriously. "He is not such a stern man, Leah, but he does not bend easily. My father is an elder in the church and feels he must set an example for others." "If you say so. Will Charity be at the campout?" "Only if I go." "So, in other words, if I don't go, neither of you will go?" The invitation didn't seem as appealing cast in that light. "I would not want to go if you do not come," he said. "Being with you is more important than being with my friends." Now Leah felt that she would be acting petty to care whether the others liked her or not. The important person was Ethan, and he wanted her with him. "I'd like to go," she told him. "I've never camped before, but I'd like to be with you too." "Then it's settled. We will go to the fair on the 4th of July, watch the fireworks, and spend the night camping with the others." She gave him a smile that she hoped conveyed more enthusiasm than she felt. Leah urged Ethan into the patient library that adjoined the rec room. It hadn't changed much. The books looked more dog-eared than ever, and someone had left the card catalog drawer open. She closed it and went to the shelf where she and Ethan had discovered Emily's diary. She fingered the bindings, half expecting to see some reminder of Gabriella. There was none. Nothing at all to reflect that strange and wonderful night when the woman had come into her room, talked to her, and touched her. "For a long time, the Gabriella mystery drove me crazy," she said to Ethan, her thoughts turning away from the July 4th party. "I read everything I could about the supernatural, about ghosts, about angels." "I do not believe in ghosts," Ethan said, "but I do believe in angels." "Do you believe that each of us has a special guardian angel?" she asked. He looked thoughtful. "I'm not sure about that." "You ask so many questions, Leah. Do you believe in angels or not?" "I do not now," Leah answered empathetically. "Do you know that a lot of people think that when they die they will turn into angels?" Ethan looked at her and said, "I saw it in a movie when I first began to try English things. It was a story about a person who dies and comes back as an angel so that he can make up for bad things. He did it to people when he was alive." He shook his head. "I knew it was not true. People get new bodies in heaven, but they do not turn into angels. Angels are separate beings from people." Leah continued to tell him what she learned in her reading. "I heard about people who were miraculously healed or rescued. Some unexplainable things have happened to people, like what happened to me." "Why do you need an explanation? Can't you just accept the gift you have been given?" Ethan toyed with the ends of her hair, curling long strands around his finger. "I guess I'll have to, but I still can't help wondering why me." Just then the door opened and they turned to see Molly. "How are you?" Molly asked excitedly. "I sort of had a premonition that I'd be seeing you soon." She gave Leah a hug. "I think I'm doing fine, but Dr. Thomas hasn't checked me over yet." Molly turned toward Ethan, smiled pleasantly, then asked, "So, Leah, aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?"